They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom. Braveheart wasn't just a sweeping medieval war epic. It was a chaotic collision of mudblood politics and filmmaking ambition so intense that the production nearly collapses multiple times. Horses crash into hidden rigs. Extras faint in suffocating armor. Crews scramble as weather stomps across the Scottish Highlands. What audiences see is myth. What happened behind the camera is madness. Today, we uncover 15 weird facts about Braveheart. Secrets of danger, ego, historical outrage, and the kind of guerrilla filmmaking that rewrites a genre. Fact number 15. The Battle of Stirling isn't really Stirling. The film delivers one of the most adrenaline-charged battle scenes of the decade. But what audiences don't know is that the legendary Battle of Stirling Bridge has no bridge. Not one plank. Not even a hint of one. Production doesn't forget it. They reject it. The real location is too narrow for Mel Gibson's massive practical battle choreography, so the team chooses the open fields of Curragh in Ireland, where thousands of extras can maneuver. Historians erupt with outrage. Newspapers accuse the film of erasing history for spectacle. Gibson responds by arguing it is about cinematic clarity, not reenactment. The controversy explodes, but the sequence becomes iconic anyway. Not accurate, but unforgettable. Fact number 14. Most of the army on screen are not people. Braveheart looks huge, but it isn't just human bodies filling the frame. It is rubber and wood. The Irish Army provides thousands of extras, but not enough for the massive pan shots Gibson wants. So the crew constructs an army of lifeless soldiers. Hundreds of dummies stand in formation with spears glued into their hands. They do not blink. They do not sway. They just stand and fill the horizon. In long-distance shots, their existence is seamless. But up close, things get messy. Heat melts some faces. Armor slips. Wind knocks entire regiments over. Assistants sprint out between takes to stand them back up. Not cinema magic, but battlefield puppetry. The result fools even industry veterans who assume Braveheart uses early digital replication. It doesn't. It is cardboard and chaos. Fact number 13. Mel Gibson was never supposed to star. The wild twist. Mel Gibson has no original intention of playing William Wallace. He views himself as too old, too recognizable, and too entangled with Hollywood to portray a Celtic folk hero. The studio disagrees. They want a star who can anchor a risky R-rated epic set in medieval Scotland. Pressure mounts. Gibson caves. What audiences don't know is how the choice disrupts production. Gibson directs scenes covered in mudblood and sweat while simultaneously acting in them. Crew members say he switches from performance to command in seconds, barking camera notes while still in costume. His dual role overloads the schedule, but also shapes the movie's tone. Not ego, but necessity. Not an actor choosing a role, but a director choosing survival. In hindsight, the decision rewrites the film's legacy. Fact number 12. The brutal torture scene is mostly silent for a reason. Wallace's execution is one of the most harrowing sequences in 90s cinema. But the strangest detail is the sound design. It is quiet. Too quiet. Gibson removes most screams, leaving only breathing grunts and the crowd's reaction. Why? Because during filming, the Foley recordings become distorted by wind and flags flapping near the mics. The audio is unusable. Rather than re-record conventional torture screams, Gibson strips the scene bare. Silence becomes pain. Stillness becomes violence. The choice amplifies discomfort far more than gore ever could. Test audiences shift in their seats unprepared for such stark emotional weight. Not a technical workaround, but a creative rebirth. The sequence becomes the soul of the film. Fact number 11. Kilts do not belong in this century. Every Braveheart poster shows warriors in kilts. Every fan remembers the swirling tartan, but historians grind their teeth. Kilts do not exist in Wallace's era. They appear centuries later. Costume designer Charles Node knows this, but faces a dilemma. Historically accurate clothing looks dull on film. Drapery and tunics lack silhouette. Kilts provide instant identity and bold cinematic texture. The creative gamble pays off. Audiences embrace the look instantly. Merchandising follows. Tartan sales spike in Scotland. Not accuracy, but iconography. Still scholars write furious editorials, accusing the film of rewriting national fashion history. Braveheart becomes both a cultural moment and a cultural misinformation engine, and the debate still burns today. Fact number 10. The battle charges are far more dangerous than they look. Braveheart's chaotic cavalry charges feel reckless on screen because they are reckless behind the scenes. Gibson insists on practical stunts. Real horses, real riders, real speed. The production builds hidden breakaway barriers, so horses appear to collide head-on with enemy lines without injury. But the rigs sometimes malfunction. A horse clips the edge. Another stumbles in mud that shifts unpredictably. Stunt coordinators rush in, screaming for resets. The tension bleeds into the footage. Extras brace themselves even when cameras aren't rolling, because they never know if a stunt horse might veer too wide. One writer says it is the closest thing to actual war I ever felt. The violence on screen isn't choreography. It is controlled mayhem, barely holding together. And before we continue, go ahead and like and subscribe, because the next secrets are only getting wilder, and Braveheart's darkest chaos is still coming. Fact number 9. Sophie Marceau joins under extreme pressure. Princess Isabel's elegance is a stark contrast to the film's brutality, but what audiences don't know is how abruptly Sophie Marceau enters production. Casting discussions drag, schedules shift, France protests a historical inaccuracy. Isabel is far too young to ever meet Wallace. Still, the studio wants a European star who can elevate the film's international profile. Marceau is approached with almost no preparation time. She arrives on set and immediately faces a tonal whiplash. One day, she films delicate political intrigue in candlelit chambers. The next, she walks through massive outdoor sets still steaming from battle sequences. She learns English dialogue on the fly. Mel Gibson shoots her scenes quickly because battle units are consuming most of the budget, not comfort, but survival. Despite chaos, her performance becomes a breakout moment that broadens the film's emotional spine. Fact number 8. The makeup team is at war with the weather. Braveheart's mud and blood aesthetic is not cosmetic exaggeration. It is a fight. The Scottish and Irish weather is so brutal that makeup melts off actors before cameras even roll. Rain turns fake blood into diluted pink streaks. Wind blasts dirt into prosthetics. Makeup chairs become emergency repair stations. What starts as a routine department becomes an endurance test. Assistants sprint across fields carrying buckets of blue face paint. Extras line up for retouches that last seconds before collapsing again under rain. Some scenes require reshoots because the war paint continuity dissolves completely. And yet the chaos gives Braveheart its grit. The stains, the streaks, the smeared pigments, they are not clean movie design. They are battlefield entropy. Not planned beauty, but unplanned truth. That rawness becomes part of what makes the film feel elemental and alive. Fact number 7. The screenplay is rewritten constantly during shooting. Randall Wallace's script is a sweeping historical drama. But once filming begins, pages shift daily. Gibson adapts to weather changes, battlefield conditions, and actor injuries. Call sheets rewrite entire sequences overnight. Dialogue scenes shrink, so the crew can film while rain clouds hover. Some characters gain added depth because actors deliver unexpected emotional beats during takes. Others lose scenes because running time balloons. Insiders describe the script as in constant motion. Rather than hurt the film, the rewrites give Braveheart a raw, organic energy. Discoveries come through necessity, not planning. The Wallace-Murren romance deepens because of improvised touches. The betrayal arcs sharpen because lightning storms disrupt filming, forcing later reshoots that heighten tension. Not instability, but evolution. The movie finds itself on the battlefield, not the page. Fact number 6. Mel Gibson directs through injuries he never mentions. As Wallace, Gibson absorbs real physical damage. Bruised ribs from staged falls, a wrenched knee from slipping on wet grass, a shoulder strain from swinging an oversized claymore repeatedly during wide-angle takes. Production wants to adjust choreography, but Gibson refuses. He hides injuries to maintain morale. Crew members notice him limping only after cameras cut. Directing while injured becomes its own ordeal. He stands for hours yelling camera cues between action beats. Assistants offer chairs. He waves them away. The cast later recalls that his pain adds an edge to his performance. The exhaustion, the strain, the tightness in his movements. None of it is acting. It is the cost of refusing to slow down. Not bravado, but obsession. The result is a performance carved from endurance. Fact number 5. The crew uses real fire with almost no margin for error. Braveheart's flaming arrows and burning villages are not digital illusions. They are real fires blazing across real structures built in remote fields. The safety team sets strict perimeter lines, but wind gusts in Scotland and Ireland ignore those lines instantly. Flames jump, sparks spray into crowds of extras. At one point, a gust pushes fire dangerously close to a camera operator before stunt marshals rush in with extinguishers. The heat becomes unbearable. Extras in wool and leather feel their costumes smoldering. Crew members rotate shifts to avoid heat exhaustion. Gibson refuses to tame the flames with visual effects. He wants uncontrolled flicker on faces. He wants panic that is not faked, not comfort, but chaos. What audiences see as cinematic intensity is the product of real danger that barely stays contained. It is fire, not metaphor. Fact number 4. The final battle is filmed like a documentary. The Battle of Falkirk feels unpredictable because Gibson directs it with near-documentary instincts. He stations multiple cameras on different sides of the field and tells operators to chase the violence, not the choreography. This creates footage where bodies slam into each other at odd angles and spears fly unpredictably through the frame. The result? Editors sort through hundreds of chaotic dailies that look more like frontline war reportage than a Hollywood epic. Some shots catch accidents. Some capture perfect emotional beats no one planned. The editing team stitches the madness into something coherent, but the raw energy stays. It isn't polished war. It is frantic survival, not clean cinema, but jagged realism. This unconventional approach becomes a key influence on later historical epics, from Gladiator to Kingdom of Heaven. Braveheart rewrites how battles are filmed. Fact number 3. The blueface paint is more symbol than history. Wallace's iconic blue war paint is one of the film's most recognizable images. But historians note the Picts used blue pigment centuries earlier, not in Wallace's time. Gibson embraces the inaccuracy deliberately. He wants a visual shorthand, a symbol of rebellion, fury, and tribal defiance. The paint becomes a cinematic banner. What audiences don't know is how difficult it is to maintain on set. The pigment cracks under heat. It streaks under sweat. It stains costumes permanently. Actors often leave set looking like they escaped a storm of ink. Makeup teams complain, but Gibson pushes forward, convinced the visual identity is worth the chaos. He is right. Not accurate, but unforgettable. The blueface becomes the film's mythic heartbeat and one of the most copied imagery motifs in 90s cinema. Fact number 2. The film destroys more props than expected. Battle scenes grind Braveheart's props department into exhaustion. Swords snap, shields splinter, spears shatter at alarming rates. Production designs lightweight weapons for safety, but the intensity breaks them constantly. Crews build thousands of replacement props. Some days they run out entirely and must halt filming until more arrive from workshops. Mud makes everything worse. Shields absorb moisture and warp. Wooden spears turn soft and brittle. Even metal helmets dent under the weight of stunt impacts. What looks like ancient carnage is modern destruction happening in real time. The constant prop turnover skyrockets costs, but also adds authenticity. Splintered shields and damaged blades become unplanned set dressing that heightens the battlefield chaos. It isn't waste, it is texture. Braveheart bleeds through its own props. Fact number 1. Test screenings go disastrously wrong. When Braveheart is first screened for test audiences, the reaction is rough. Some viewers complain about excessive length. Others say the violence feels relentless. A few walk out during Wallace's execution unable to handle the emotional weight. Studio executives panic. They want cuts. They want changes. They fear audiences are not ready for such brutality wrapped in a historical epic. Gibson holds firm. He trims small pieces but refuses to dilute the emotional through line. If the ending doesn't hurt, the story doesn't work, he reportedly tells the studio. Against early feedback, Braveheart keeps its raw intensity. Not compromise, but conviction. The risk pays off. When the film finally releases, critics praise its honesty and emotional power. Test screenings predict disaster. The release rewrites history. Bonus fact, Braveheart almost loses its most iconic line. The film's most famous line, "They may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom," is nearly cut during editing. Editors worry it feels too theatrical, too operatic for a gritty war film. Gibson disagrees. He argues that the entire emotional architecture of the story builds toward that moment. Without it, Wallace lacks a defining roar, the mythic heartbeat that rallies nations. The dispute stretches across multiple editing sessions. When they test alternate cuts without the line, something strange happens. The audience energy collapses. The speech lands like a spark that ignites the film's final transformation. Only then do editors concede. Not indulgence, but necessity. The line becomes one of the most quoted in cinema, and the soul of Braveheart's cultural legacy. Braveheart is not just a historical epic. It is a storm of risk rewritten daily through mud, blood, fire, and stubborn conviction. If you want more deep dive behind-the-scenes revelations, like, subscribe, and choose your next movie. Because the battlefield of filmmaking is always wilder than the legend on screen.